Vernestra Rwoh is a Jedi Master who uses a lightsaber that can turn into a lightwhip at the twist of the hilt, who is going to be appearing in the upcoming Acolyte series, but before that, 100 years before, in fact, she is a young Jedi prodigy who is still learning how to live up to the expectations that the Order has on her and that she has with herself during a time of trial and tribute for the Jedi. She appeared in a lot of books and several comics as well, so before her first appearance in live action, I wanted to go back and cover all of Vernestra's story up to release-wise when the Acolyte is going to be coming out, so bear with me, it's going to be a long one. While Vernestra's first appearance was in the first High Republic book, The Light of the Jedi, her actual first chronological appearance is in the comic book, The High Republic Adventures Annual 2021, in the first mission part of that comic by Justina Ireland, several years before we get to know the young Jedi Knight Vernestra Rwoh. Her first mission as Master Stellan Gios' Padawan sees her arrive at the small temple on Hynestia. There she meets her new master, as well as Jedi Master Lynella Kabe OU. The Masters take Vernestra along to the Hynestian Royal Palace for a banquet celebrating a peace treaty between the Hynestians and the Hutts. Vernestra realizes that they are being served pavo punch, which is toxic to the Hutts. In order to prevent things from going bad at the banquet, her master, Stellan, knocks the punch away from Jabba the Hutt before he is served any, which upsets him because his plan was to make it look like the Hynestians served them the punch, so they had a reason to attack. Well, with the charade out of the way, the Hutts attack. Vernestra and her new master defeat the goons and then confront Jabba. After the banquet, Stellan says that he thinks he and Vernestra are going to work very well together. The High Republic era was first introduced via the Great Disaster, when a ship destroyed in hyperspace came blasting out in pieces. Those pieces caused massive destruction in the Hetzel system, where several Jedi responded to the emergency. When a canister of Tabata gas was heading straight towards the system's sun, which would have caused a chain reaction that blew up the entire star system and all of the billions of people who lived there, Jedi Master Avar Kriss came up with a radical plan. Meditating in a field on Hetzel Prime, she reached out in the Force, which she sees as a great song with different notes and sounds, and conducted the Jedi into a harmony to combine and focus their abilities. Reaching out first to all the Jedi in the system, soon the combined will and focus of the Jedi present allowed the connection to spread across the whole galaxy, to Coruscant and the Jedi Temple, to Master Yoda and his students on a spaceship in a far-off system, and I have no reason not to believe to young Vernestra Rwoh on Port Halip, which is where she was stationed at the time. While all of the Jedi see the Force in different ways, like for Vernestra, she sees it as a system of rivers and streams that flow and connect all the living beings throughout the galaxy. They are all able to combine their abilities to focus on moving this canister at the same time, in the same way. And it worked. In what could have been a moment of absolute and unthinkable tragedy, the Jedi came together across the galaxy and saved countless lives. With the eyes of the galaxy on this moment and this monumental act by the Jedi, Avar Kriss came to be known as the Hero of Hetzel, and forever cemented her place in Jedi history for orchestrating this combined Jedi effort. The first Vernestra-centered story that was published introduces the audience to the youngest Jedi Knight in quite a long time. She was 15 when she passed her trials, and is 16 during this story. When a luxury ship that she is on, escorting a diplomatic envoy to the opening ceremony for Starlight Beacon, is sabotaged, she has to call on the Force heavily to crush a blast door in her and some survivors' path, a la Luke crushing the Dark Trooper in the Mandalorian Season 2 finale. And then when they are fleeing the destruction on a maintenance shuttle with no shields and limited maneuverability, she uses the Force to keep an entire debris field out of the ship's path. The use of the Force for these extraordinary feats exhausts her for a good day or so, but it's a good demonstration of why she would be promoted to Jedi Knight at such a young age, because these are remarkable feats. While awaiting rescue on the moon of Wevo, Vernestra has to keep the 3 children with her alive in a hostile environment. Among those children is 14-year-old Jedi Padawan Imri Kantaros, whose master, Master Douglas, was killed in the destruction of the luxury ship, which the children learn was the doing of 2 pirate marauders who are part of the Nihil. Also with them is Avon Starros, daughter of Republic Senator Starros, and Honesty Weft, the son of a diplomat from the frontier world of Dalna. Vernestra wants to capture the pirates so they can be questioned about the Nihil's motivations and stand trial, while Imri only wants revenge for the death of his master. After Vernestra subdues the pirates, Imri attacks her out of anger. Vernestra uses the custom whip mode of her lightsaber to destroy Imri's lightsaber and talk him out of his dark side-fueled rage. The group is rescued and taken to Starlight Beacon before its dedication ceremony. There, Vernestra speaks with Jedi Master Skier, who eases Vernestra's doubts that she didn't do enough to keep Imri from the lore of the dark side. Master Skier reminds her that keeping our dark impulses in check is a lifelong challenge, and that Vernestra was able to break through to Imri in his darkest moment. Skier encourages Vernestra to take Imri on as her own Padawan, and though she is initially doubtful, confronting her own insecurities at being viewed as a prodigy, she agrees that this is the right call, and she becomes the master to Imri Kantaros. At the end of the novel The Light of the Jedi, Vernestra and her new Padawan Imri are among the numerous Jedi present at the dedication ceremony for Starlight Beacon, a massive space station in the Outer Rim that would serve as the Republic's center of operations in the Outer Rim, a communication hub, and housed the largest Jedi temple outside of Coruscant. There, Chancellor Lina So gives a moving speech about hope and unity across the Republic in this golden age for the galaxy. In the High Republic comics by Cavan Scott, Vernestra and Imri spend some time on Starlight Beacon after the dedication, where they help retrieve the body of a dead Hutt found on a ship that had sent a distress signal after a Nihil attack. While they originally assumed that the Nihil killed the Hutt, an autopsy reveals that before their death, the Hutt was infected with roots of the Drengir, a powerful new threat in the form of sentient plants that reek of the dark side and feed on animal life. Using the Hutt's body to grow, the Drengir attack Starlight Beacon. Vernestra and Imri help the Jedi on the station fight the Drengir off until Jedi Knight Keeve Trennis uses a Jedi mind trick to convince the Drengir that all of their meat is spoiled and just gross, and then they retreat. Vernestra then spends some time on Starlight doing research and comparison between recent Nihil attacks. She believes that both the confrontation with the Nihil on Wevo that she had, and another instance where the Nihil went to kidnap an Elder of the Path on Trimant 4, both fell outside of not normal Nihil patterns that she was picking up. She contacted Jedi Master Kantam Sai and asked him and his Padawan Lula Talasola to question the remaining Elders about what the Nihil might have wanted when they kidnapped one of their Elders, Elder Dromak. When their investigation uncovers the location of a Nihil base in the Stigmarn system, Vernestra sets out to meet them there. Vernestra and Lula stealthily survey a moon in the system in a shuttle from Starlight. They won't give Vernestra a vector since she crashed her last one and also crashed the shuttle that she escaped in from the luxury cruiser that she was on that also exploded. She's got a bad history with ships. They locate the Nihil base there just in time to watch a squadron of fighters take off and launch into hyperspace. Starlight Beacon passes on a message from Padawan Ram Jomaram that the Nihil have sabotaged the planet's communication tower. Valo is the site of the Republic Fair, bringing in countless citizens, representatives of the Republic, allies of the Republic, and even Chancellor Lina So herself. Vernestra and Lula go to Valo immediately to follow up on Padawan Ram's report. During their hyperspace trip together, Lula opens up to Vernestra about how she feels like a failure of a Jedi because of the amount of attachments that she has to her fellow Padawans, to her master, Master Sai, to her friend Zine, to the people she's met and helped across the galaxy, and even to the ship that she learns on, the Starhopper. She feels able to open up to Vernestra because she's so young, but also a Jedi Knight, so she's closer to her in age, but also supposedly has more wisdom than her. Vernestra assures her that she's not a failure, that she's a great Jedi. Now I'm directly quoting her for a little bit. Being a Jedi isn't about not having feelings or caring about anything. The fact that we feel, that we care, is what makes a Jedi great. Being a Jedi is about balance. Vernestra then asked Lula if she would save Master Sai or her friend Zine, even if that meant that saving them meant that she never got to see them again, to which Lula said that she would. Then you're saving them for them, Padawan, and not for yourself. It is not attachment. I love this little scene. It shows a lot about the difference between the Jedi of the High Republic and the stoic teachings of the prequel era, while also showing why Anakin's attachments were so dangerous. I don't think he would have answered Vernestra's question the same way when it came to Ahsoka or Padme. I think he would struggle about the thought of saving them, but then not being able to see them again. I don't think it would work for him. It shows how wise Vernestra is at such a young age, and how, while Lula is a bit jealous about Vernestra's early ascension to knighthood, and this brings out her own insecurities, it shows the inspiration that Vernestra is able to have on those around her. And this is even when Vernestra has her own insecurities about her young ascension to knighthood, as shown in A Test of Courage. And she also admits to Lula that she still gets scared when she enters battle, just not letting it make her freeze up. She says, it's about balance. If we're not scared at all, we can't be courageous, right? And we might make mistakes in our arrogance. Their shuttle crashes, Vernestra noting that the shipmaster on Starlight is going to kill her, and Vernestra sends Lula to find Ram and help him repair the communication tower as she joins the main fight in the city to keep people safe from the Nihil onslaught. After making their way through rampaging zoo animals, Nihil marauders, and Drengir that the Nihil planted in front of the tower, Ram, Lula, and Zine restore communications, allowing Starlight to become aware of the situation and send reinforcements to push the Nihil attack back off of Valo. In an emergency session of the Jedi Council after the Nihil attack on Valo, the Council discusses many things, including Vernestra's report that the Nihil were spreading Drengir spores near the communications tower. This revelation, plus other evidence that points to the Nihil having a larger scheme rather than just uncoordinated raider strikes, leads Jedi Master Stellan Gios, Vernestra's former master, and Terry Rosasan to the conclusion that the Nihil are an army and a threat to be taken seriously. After gaining some intelligence on the Nihil, Master Gios devises a plan to lure the Nihil into a trap, making them think that the Republic's shipyards over Cyclor are undefended and would be receiving no Jedi aid. This was a ruse, as after the Nihil dropped into the system, they were surrounded by Republic ships, as well as the Jedi-controlled Vector craft. Vernestra and Imri were part of the Jedi squadron in their own Vector, along with Master Gios, Nib Assek, and her Padawan Buryaga, Bakari, and Porter Engel. When significantly less Nihil ships than they expected to show up, Vernestra, ever the optimist, says that perhaps they overestimated how many Nihil there are. As the second part of Master Gios' plan to strike back against the Nihil goes into effect, allowing a Nihil prisoner to escape, so that he can lead the Jedi to a Nihil base on the jungle world of Grizzal, Porter Engel stays behind to finish up the Nihil at the Cyclor shipyards, while the rest go to Grizzal to back up Jedi Master Elzar Mann. As the squadron of Vectors prepare to attack the Nihil base, Stellan teases his former Padawan, telling her not to crash another ship, which earns him a playful nudge through the Force from Vernestra. The battle sees the Nihil scatter into hyperspace, making this battle be seen as one of the Jedi's greatest victory over the Nihil, though it doesn't come without cost. In Out of the Shadows, Vernestra, now 17, and her Padawan Imri have continued to help out with missions at Starlight Beacon until a personal request from Senator Gira Staros of Hosnian Prime comes in for Vernestra's aid in a mission, which sees them called back to the main temple on Coruscant. As Vernestra and Imri discuss the upcoming change, we see a glimpse into their master and apprentice relationship. Imri has always been especially gifted in feeling the emotions of others through the Force, but that is only heightened after the disastrous Nihil attack on Valo. The crowds on Starlight are sometimes overwhelming for him, and he's worried about going into such a populated place as Coruscant. Perhaps as a way to help him cope with this, he has developed the ability to ease minds and make someone happy through the Force. He worries that influencing someone's emotions like that is a dark side power, and he's been susceptible to the dark side in the past, as proven during their duel on the moon of Wevo. But Vernestra assures him that the attempt to help means that it's not a dark side power, even if it might be a step too far. She hopes that being on Coruscant will allow the Council to offer their wisdom to Imri's new ability, because she doesn't really know what to do about it, which feeds into her own insecurity that she's not a good master for Imri. Imri, sensing her insecurity with his, ability to detect the emotions of others, comments that he has grown so much as a Jedi by venturing off of Port Halep, which is where him and Master Douglas spent most of their time before. But being with Vernestra has allowed him to see more of the galaxy, and being guided by her and the many Jedi Masters that he's been able to meet and work with and learn from on Starlight has helped him grow into a better Jedi. So I like that they're supportive of each other. They're similar in age. She's, a couple years older than him, but similar in age. But there is a very respectful friendship between them. After they overhear part of an argument between Jedi Masters Avar Kriss and Stellan Gios about where the Jedi's priorities should lie after Valo, Vernestra finds herself unable to sleep. She meets up with an old friend of hers, Reith Silas, a Padawan who was a youngling with her, so they're the same age group. Even though she's been promoted to be a Jedi Knight, he is still a Padawan because most people their age are. She's just a bit of a prodigy. They spar in the practice rooms and then have a conversation about how offensive the Jedi should or shouldn't be against a threat like the Nihil, how much is justified and how much strays from the Jedi path. These kinds of discussions and arguments are part of what make the Nihil such an interesting villain for the Jedi of the High Republic era, and a huge part of what leads the Jedi to transition more towards the Jedi we see of the prequel era, who are so embroiled in the Republic's politics and military affairs that it leads them to their demise at the hands of Darth Sidious's machinations. For her part, Vernestra is more drawn to Avar Kriss's side of the argument that the Jedi need to go on the offensive against the Nihil to prevent them from causing more death and destruction like they did on Valo. She also finds herself being more drawn to the cosmic force than most of the Jedi of this era. As a contrast, the Council and the Phantom Menace almost exclusively concern themselves with the cosmic force, which is the state of the galaxy as a whole. This is why Qui-Gon Jinn is such an outlier in the prequels, because he's much more attuned to the living force, the smaller picture, helping people on an individual scale, going out and doing small good things, making life for the everyday person better. It's an interesting flip overall to keep track of as the time of the Jedi changes over the course of the 200 years between these stories and the Phantom Menace, with the Acolyte being smack in the middle 100 years between both of them. I'm very interested to see where the Jedi will be on that spectrum, because in this time, the time of the books, no one else is really attuned to the cosmic force, the large picture. They're like, politics, that's not us. Whereas in the prequels, they're like, all politics, we do whatever the Senate tells us. So, interested to see where that falls in the middle. And if perhaps, with Vernestra being a master in the Acolyte series, does she help guide them towards that which they become in the prequels? Leaving Starlight Beacon, Vernestra and Imri have a similar conversation with Reith and his master, Comac Vitus, on their ship bound for Coruscant. This is because Starlight's shipmaster will no longer allow Vernestra to pilot any of their ships, so she has to tag along with these other Jedi. During their first hyperspace jump, Vernestra has a vision through the force of a planet with a red desert where the Nihil are attacking a small town defended by one lone Jedi, and the Nihil are looking for an item stolen from them by an Ugnaught family. Their trip is then interrupted by a distress call from a small Jedi outpost on the remote world of Taikei, a red desert planet where one Jedi Master is defending a small town against a Nihil attack, the Nihil looking for an object stolen from them by an Ugnaught family. They help fight the Nihil off, and they find the family from Vernestra's vision dead, and a strange puzzle box-like cube on the bodies of one of the Nihil. Important to note at this point, Vernestra does not share her vision with anyone else. After this diversion, they arrive at the main Jedi Temple on Coruscant. Vernestra makes her way to Stellan Gios' office. On the way, she runs into Master Yaddle, who's teaching a group of younglings, and Yaddle tells Vernestra, "Do not reject your instincts, Jedi." Interesting time to run into Yaddle and get some wisdom from her. As she walks into Stellan's new office on the council level, she remembers how the last time she was there, this office belonged to Stellan's former master, Rada Kant, and Vernestra muses to herself about the patterns that can be found throughout time. It's like a poem. It rhymes. I wonder if in the Acolyte, Vernestra is going to be a member of the Jedi Council, and if that office will be hers. Stellan gives her an assignment to investigate a possible hyperspace anomaly in the nearby empty Barange sector, which Vernestra feels is a waste of time given the Nihil situation across the Outer Rim. And Stellan encourages her to try reconnecting with these strange hyperspace visions she had as a Padawan, which she wants nothing to do with. So she leaves this whole conversation feeling pretty annoyed, and this is a moment that reminded me that even though Vernestra is so powerful with the Force and wise for her age, she's still a teenager. She's 17 at this point, so being pulled away from an assignment that she was enjoying to go do something that she isn't as interested in by her father figure, her master, makes her kind of huffy and puffy. I'm just like, yeah, you are still young, even though you're so talented. But her attitude soon changes when Professor Wolk, a Gungan hyperspace expert who was supposed to accompany the Jedi on their investigation of the hyperspace anomaly, and also may have known how to open the puzzle box that she found on the body of the dead Nihil, this professor is murdered, Vernestra realizes there may be a bit more going on to this assignment than initially meets the eye. As Vernestra and Imri are drawn into the political scheming and rivalry between Senator Starros and Xylan Graf, who's from the influential and extremely wealthy Graf family, Master Comac and Reith are also assigned onto this mission. Vernestra worries that Stellan assigned Master Comac because he thought that she couldn't handle this mission. But in a conversation that she has with Comac, she learns that it's not due to Stellan doubting her abilities, but doubting the intentions of both Senator Starros and Xylan Graf. And he passes on the wisdom that while Vernestra is very talented in the Force and is a prodigy, she just doesn't have the life experience with complex politics that Master Comac does. While meditating on and letting go of her anger at being manipulated by Senator Starros and Xylan Graf during their hyperspace trip to the Graf family station to grab a more powerful ship, just in case they run into any Nihil trouble, you know, Vernestra has another one of her hyperspace visions. She finds herself in a strange, run-down ship and being called by a mysterious voice to find her. Imri comes in and interrupts the vision, and soon they land at the Graf station. There, they are ambushed by Nihil raiders, who knock out the Jedi using painful poisonous gas and stun blasts. When Vernestra wakes up, she's still on the Graf station with Master Comac and Jordana Sparkburn, who was the marshal from Tikai, who accompanied them on this mission as a representative of the Santeca family, a rival of the Grafs, but also so she could try to win back her ex-girlfriend, Sylvester Yarrow, the pilot on the mission, so she's there. She's with them. Vernestra learns that Silvestri and the two Padawans, Imri and Reith, were taken away by the Nihil. The matriarch of the Graf family apologizes for the Nihil attack, placing all of the blame of an arrangement between the Nihil and the Graf family at the feet of Xylan Graf, who is her grandson. Without much time to detain the Grafs for public investigators, the three of them, that's Vernestra, Jordana Sparkburn, and Master Comac, take a Graf experimental warship, the Vengeful Goddess, and use the coordinates inside the finally unlocked puzzle box to follow the Nihil. Now feeling anxious about wanting to rescue her Padawan, Vernestra embraces her strange hyperspace visions and meets an old woman being held prisoner by the Nihil at their destination. Arriving at the Nihil hyperspace weapon station, the Gravity's Heart, the ship is swarmed by Nihil fighters. Comac pilots the ship as Jordana and Vernestra crash an escape pod into the station to free their friends. They all meet up next to the life pod, keeping the impossibly old Mary Santeca alive. Through the Force, Mary shows Vernestra memories of her life, once a young girl who was kidnapped, then used by the Nihil for her ability to find secret hyperspace routes through the Force. She gives Vernestra the knowledge of one last path to the edge of the galaxy before she dies. They all escape as the Nihil station is being destroyed by Jedi and Republic reinforcements called in by Master Comac. During her debriefing with the Jedi Council, the knowledge of the events of the Gravity Heart Space Station battle and the Graf family involvement with the Nihil leads to more arguments on how involved the Jedi should become in offensive actions against the Nihil. Vernestra and Imri are taken back to Starlight Beacon by Sylvester Yarrow and Jordana Sparkburn, who keep the Vengeful Goddess starship. In Mission to Disaster, Vernestra is now 18 years old, and the Nihil are thought to be nearly defeated, with Lorna D, who the Jedi erroneously believed to be the Eye of the Nihil, on the run. Vernestra uses this first time of calm since taking Imri on as a Padawan to take him to the rocky world of Kirima to practice force jumping and various other physical styles that do not come naturally to him. She reflects how being a teacher has taught her more about the Force than the rest of her time as being a Jedi, as Imri feels the Force in very different ways than her. Meditations that he learned at the Jedi Temple on Coruscant have helped him control his ability to deeply experience the feelings of others, and now his proficiency was extremely valuable to them on diplomatic missions. As Imri attempts a Force jump once more, Vernestra suddenly has a vision, which she usually only has while in hyperspace, of their friend Avon Starros under attack by Nihil. They then get word from Starlight Beacon to investigate a possible Nihil attack on Port Halep, which is where Avon lives. They arrive and check in with Jedi Master Jordina Boffrey, who says that the Nihil arrived with 6 ships, attacked, and left just as sudden. Vernestra learns that Avon was taken captive by the Nihil during the attack. Checking in with Master Maru on Starlight Beacon, they learn that there were several other disappearances being noted at Dulna, so Imri and Vernestra travel there next. They arrive at the small Jedi temple on the planet and meet Jedi Master Nylan Quinn. Dulna has joined the Republic after the death of Honesty Wep's ambassador father over a year ago, but the Dulnans are still generally closed off to outsiders. And they are especially wary of the Jedi after the Night of Sorrow, which was a brutal battle between the Jedi and the Path of the Open Hand on Dulna over 150 years prior. Jedi Knight Essex Sparkburn, maybe no relation to Jordana Sparkburn, but unclear, takes Vernestra and Imri to the Dulnan capital city. While Vernestra gets precisely nowhere, speaking with the planet's vice president, Imri reunites with Honesty. Honesty meets them later at the Jedi Temple and introduces them to Shani, his training partner on the Dulna Defense Force. Shani has recently seen Nihil in the nearby mountains, but for some reason these sightings and the missing Dulnans aren't being taken seriously by the planet's government. Vernestra, Imri, Honesty, Shani, Yasek, and the Jedi Archivist Lisa Volts fly to the mountains to investigate where the Nihil were spotted. There, they are nearly trampled to death by a panicked and stampeding pack of Bulsa. While Imri gets the ship off the ground, Vernestra uses the Force to nudge the path of an entire stampeding herd out of the way. She's just so cool. She's just so cool. Flying in the direction that the disturbed herd came from, they find a ramshackle building being attacked by ice gators. The Jedi scare off the ice gators, and inside the building find a scared young Thelan boy, Theo, the son of the Vice President. Returning Theo to his father's, the Jedi meet with the Vice President again, who says that he was unhelpful before because the Nihil had kidnapped and threatened his son. He reveals that the Nihil have also placed bombs along a major fault line on the planet, and that if this fault line were to be blown up, catastrophic things would happen on the relatively small planet. The Jedi can't call for assistance from Starlight since the Nihil have destroyed the communications satellites orbiting the planet, but they do receive a distress call from Avon, who is being forced to work for the Nihil. The fact that they're able to receive the message with those satellites being destroyed means that the Nihil must be somewhere on Dulna, and that Avon is being held captive by them there. Vernestra sends Imri, Lisa, and the Vice President to Starlight to get assistance from the Jedi and the Republic. Since Imri takes their ship to get to Starlight, Vernestra and the others must ride back to the mountains on the backs of animals called Trapu. They stop at the end of the day so as not to overwork the beasts. When they pull out their food, a young child leaps out to steal Master Nyla's food. The boy, Liam, has been a prisoner of the Nihil and says that he knows Avon. Vernestra struggles with patience in this moment, and many others before, on their search for Avon, as she really just wants to charge in and save her friend right away, but she realizes that it's best, rationally, to let the Trapu rest, and to give Liam time to rest from his trauma before bombarding him with questions for information. The next morning, Liam tells them what he knows about the Nihil camp, and Honesty and Shani go and take him back to the city. Vernestra arrives at the Nihil camp just in time to save Avon from the cybernetically enhanced Nihil mad scientist, Dr. Nkampa. Her device that targets the planet's fault lines was dangerously sabotaged by Avon, but it goes off to catastrophic effects. Dr. Nkampa flees, and Vernestra, Yasek, Master Nyla, and Tracer, the head of Dulna Security, free the many children and families captured by the Nihil. They load everyone onto a Nihil ship and return to the Jedi Temple on the planet. The seismic activity caused by Dr. Nkampa's device triggers a chain of groundquakes and volcanic eruptions across the entire small world of Dulna. In 2 weeks' time, the world will be completely covered in lava and noxious gas. Vernestra helps evacuate the planet's population to a small island before the main continent is completely covered by lava. Even still, they must wait and hope that they are all saved in time. They are indeed saved thanks to Imri, who convinces Avar, Kriss, and the Republic leaders on Starlight Beacon to have the entire space station towed to Dalna's orbit by a fleet of ships. The station and the ships have enough capacity to evacuate the entire planet. After the evacuation is complete, Vernestra, Avon, Imri, and Honesty are all reunited on Starlight Beacon. In some downtime on Starlight, Vernestra coaches Imri as well as Padawans Reed Silas and Bel Zetafar on some dueling techniques. One lesson she passes on is that the moment you think you are winning is the moment you are closest to defeat. And soon, she would learn that the exact same holds true about the Nile. In The Fallen Star by Claudia Gray, even though Vernestra doesn't appear in this book, it provides some needed context. After a devastating cyclone on the water planet of Irem damages the planet's desalination plants, the only source of drinkable water on the otherwise entirely saltwater ocean world, Starlight Beacon is towed into orbit of that planet to provide relief and help with repairs. When the repairs get far enough along that they are almost complete, a celebration is held on the planet. Provides a chance to release tension after the disaster and to celebrate the dying down of the fear that the Nihil had caused across the Outer Rim after their attack on Valo. Stellan Gios, who has been newly made the Marshal of Starlight Beacon after Avar, Kriss basically goes AWOL with a task force to capture Lorna D without the Jedi Council's approval, oversees the ceremony. This event was likely the last time that Vernestra gets to see her former master alive. After the ceremony, Vernestra Rwoh and Lisa Votz stay behind to oversee the last details of completing repairs on the desalination plants. It is then that Starlight Beacon is bombed by Nihil saboteurs sent by the true Eye of the Nihil, Marchion Rwoh himself. The explosion causes the station to split in two and begin falling towards the planet's surface. Since Vernestra is on Irem's surface, there's nothing that she can do as she watches Starlight fall, knowing that people are dying up there. The only true moment she gets to assist those on the station is when Avar Kriss, in a smaller version of the feat that she performed on Hetzel in the Great Disaster, reaches out through the Song of the Force to hold the top part of the station together long enough to save a few more lives before it completely breaks apart in the planet's atmosphere. As the trajectory of the falling bottom half of Starlight Beacon threatens to flatten the capital city of Irem, Jedi Master Stellan Gios gives his life to manually use the remaining thrusters to ensure it crashes into the ocean instead. This saves countless lives, but causes massive waves that throw the entire desalination plant out of alignment. Once more, Avar Kriss unites the surviving Jedi on the planet's surface to push the plant back into alignment, ensuring that the people of Irem do not die of thirst now that Starlight Beacon can no longer aid them, or anyone else in the galaxy. The Nihil have struck a truly devastating blow at the heart of the Republic and Jedi's efforts out in the Outer Rim. In the Vernestra-focused short story in this short story collection, Tales of Light and Life, the short story being The Force Provides by Justina Ireland, Vernestra joins as many missions as she can to fight the Nihil. She lost everyone that was close to her in the fall of Starlight, her former master Stellan, her Padawan Imri, and her friend Avon Staros. She blames herself for not being able to help them, for not being good enough. She's a prodigy after all. So powerful with the Force, the best Jedi of her age and inspiration to all, and she was able to do jack shit. So she fights. She fights and fights and fights until a particularly awful battle near Janisha leaves her with the feeling that all the fighting is pointless. She decides to become a Wayseeker, a Jedi who doesn't answer to the will of the Council, but just follows where the Force takes them. The Force leads her to a transport to Mykos, a small fishing planet near the edge of wild space. On the ship, she stops an assassination attempt against an old Togrutan woman named Tanabi Yar. Vernestra feels a pull from the Force to help this old woman further, so she joins her at her son's house on Mykos. There, Tanabi Yar explains that she spent most of her life as a pirate who fought against corporations hurting the less fortunate people of the galaxy. Before she retires to live with her son and be a good grandmother to his future children, she has called her old friends to do one last job. The Confederation of Haulers has a monopoly on this world that is driving its farmers into poverty, and she aims to end that. Vernestra helps Tanabe slice a comms tower away from the Confederation so that the farmers of the world can communicate directly with off-world traders and set their own prices, preventing poverty from befalling the world. After their adventure, Tanabe, who can tell that Vernestra needs some rest to process the pain of the last few years of fighting, directs her to the peaceful world of eBay to reflect and reconnect with herself and to the Force. Last book, Defy the Storm by Tessa Gradden and Justina Ireland. 1 year after the fall of Starlight Beacon and after spending a year in nihil space, which has been physically cut off from the rest of the galaxy by a barrier called the Storm Wall, Avon Starros finally convinces her mother, Senator Gira Starros, who is thrown in her luck completely with the Nihil and become one of the top 3 ministers advising Marchin Rwoh, to let her go to Coruscant for university because she can't get a proper education in the space controlled by the marauding pirates of the Nile. The galaxy's in a bad shape when a section of it is physically cut off. So, once on Coruscant, Avon sneaks into the Jedi archives and gets the help of Reet Silas to track down where Vernestra has gone in her time as a Wayseeker. Avon finds Vernestra on the peaceful world of Ibe at the edge of wild space. Vernestra is still emotionally scarred after the falling of Starlight Beacon. In her time isolated from the Order, Vernestra has shorn her hair short, cutting it by herself with her lightsaber, creating a look that kind of reflects the imbalance that she's struggling with on the inside. Vernestra had believed that Avon died on Starros and is tearful at the reunion, but when Avon says that she survived with Imri, who is also in the Nihil-controlled occlusion zone of space, Vernestra just completely breaks down into sobs. They go aboard the vessel to meet Avon's contact to get them back into the zone to rescue Imri. While in hyperspace, Vernestra has a vision while she is awake and not meditating, which doesn't normally happen. A force-projected vision of Mari Sinteca comes to her to say that the time to use the path she gave Vernestra is coming up soon, and to keep Avon with her, as she is important. They meet up with Avon's contact, a Nihil woman named Diva Lompop, who has been protecting Avon since the fall of Starlight. Diva Lompop, I love that name, by the way, Diva Lompop. Diva reaches out to the pirate queen Maz Kanata to hire folks to kidnap Xylan Graf for them. Xylan, along with the cybernetically enhanced Dr. Nkampa, has been maintaining the station powering the Storm Wall, the lightning crash, which was made with research from Chancey Yarrow, so Xylan should have the ability to get into the occlusion zone. As fate has it, the people that Maz hired are the owners of Xylan's former ship, the Vengeful Goddess, Sylvester Yarrow, who is Chancey's daughter, who Vernestra had helped before, and her girlfriend, Jordana Sparkbird. Vernestra, Avon, Diva, Xylan, and Jordana use Xylan's codes to get across the Storm Wall in Diva's ship. They stop at the planet of Seswana on the Nihil side of the Storm Wall to refuel and grab supplies. While out with Avon, Vernestra catches up on some recent galactic events via news hollows. One recording she sees is how Marchin Rwoh marked the 1-year anniversary of the fall of Starlight Beacon by broadcasting the torture and execution of Jedi Grand Master Prati Veter, who was helpless at the mercy at one of the Nameless, aka the Shriekaré or Force Eaters, who completely befuddle his senses and turn him into an ashy husk while the galaxy watches. Vernestra soon suffers the mental and emotional turmoil of just being near one of the Nameless and passes out as Avon leads her to safety. When Vernestra awakes, she is on a ship being piloted by Diva Lompop. Diva plays her a recorded message from Avon, who says that she plans on taking Xylan Graf back to the Lightning Crash station to blow it up, taking down the Storm Wall for good if she's successful. She instructed Diva to take Vernestra to the planet Aricho to find and rescue Imri. Aricho has become the domain of a Nihil named Kara Zu, a former Tempest runner who is now kidnapping children on the planet for some reason. Vernestra is very intent on putting a stop to that, even though there is a danger of her being discovered as a Jedi, while the Nihil, in their own space, have these creatures, the Nameless, that can kill Jedi. Vernestra convinces Diva to help her figure out and foil Kara's plans, in addition to locating Imri. As Diva heads into the city to try to figure out Kara Zu's plan, Vernestra follows a tracking device that should lead her to Avon's droid, J6, that she left with Imri. As Vernestra makes her way through what was once clearly a vibrant town hastily abandoned, her anger towards the Nihil and their various acts of violence and aggression swells, and she struggles to move past it. She finds J6, who says that not only is Imri on this world, but so are the Jedi Knights Lisa Vots and Yasik Sparkburn. The world was pretty uninteresting to the Nihil until they discovered it to be a source of Glaka root, which is a highly valuable commodity to the Hutts, as it is used in their mating rituals. So then Cara Zhu set up shop, using civilians to cultivate the root so the Nihil can trade it to the Hutts in exchange for weapons. Now Imri has been organizing an attack against the Nihil on the planet to liberate these working civilians, and hopefully kick the Nihil off the planet and make it a safe space once again. They will be striking at sunset, so Vernestra spends the day helping J6 equip some rudimentary droids that will help fight the Nihil and pilot land speeders to bring people to safety. Vernestra uses the time to reflect on the pride she feels in Imri for organizing this resistance, and reflects on her deceased master Stellan. This experience teaches her that she likes building things and plans on remembering that. Will that come up in the Acolyte? I don't know, we'll find out. At sunset, Vernestra helps free civilians, and then runs into Imri as they work together to capture Cara Zhu and all of her Nihil collaborators. They embrace as they are finally reunited. Seeing the way that Imri handled himself, protecting and uniting not only the people around him, but also 2 full Jedi Knights, and noticing the stark difference between the unsure, angry boy who she took in as a Padawan, and the confident young man that she sees before her now. Vernestra uses her lightsaber to cut Imri's Padawan braid, and proclaims him to be a Jedi Knight. He chooses to stay on Aricho to gather Force-sensitive people in the Occlusion Zone on this safe planet and keep them away from the Nihil and their Force Eaters. Upon arriving back in orbit above Seswana, Vernestra and Diva's ship is torn apart by scav droids, basically the precursor to buzz droids from Revenge of the Sith. Vernestra and Diva cram it into an escape pod and jettison dangerously fast to Seswana's surface as the pod's engines don't work. Vernestra calls on a force in a way that she hasn't been able to do since before the fall of Starlight Beacon, but thinking about how much Imri has grown and the good that he will bring the galaxy and the pride she feels in him inspires her to use the Force to push off against the planet and slow the descent of the escape pod just enough that they are able to survive unscathed. The effort of this incredible feat causes Vernestra to pass out, but she's not done being a badass for the day. Oh no! When she wakes up, Diva has brought her to the hangar with Diva's ship, where Jordana and Avon are waiting for them. Xylan decided not to stay because he wanted to stay with his secret husband on the planet. But the ship is surrounded by attacking Nihil, who are pissed about Avon's attack on the Lightning Crash station, even though she didn't successfully destroy it. Vernestra takes out her lightsaber, turns it into a lightwhip to repel every single shot fired by the gang of Nihil, then does a flip over the gathered gang of them, throws it up into the air, lands on the ground, force pushes all of them, grabs it as it falls, whips it with the momentum from the throw to break several of their weapons, turns it back into a blade, reflects shots at them, throws the lightsaber. The Nihil are just like, oh my god, we cannot stand against a Jedi, retreat, run away, and Vernestra cements herself as a complete and total badass. I thought she was a badass before this, but the description of her lightsaber action in that scene, wow. Using the codes that Avon got from the Lightning Crash station, our heroes are able to escape the Occlusion Zone and land their damaged ship outside of Maz Kanata's castle on Takodana. While waiting for Silvestri to come and pick them up from Takodana, Vernestra confers with her friends about what they learned on their various adventures on the other side in Nihil space. Talking about the path that she got from Arisen Tekka with Diva Lompop makes me think, just based on the way that they talk, that this path is going to lead them to the mysterious and hard-to-reach planet X at the edge of wild space, which is where Marchin Rwoh and his ancestors before him got the Nameless from in the first place. So that's a prediction for me on where some of the book stuff is going. And Jordana gives Vernestra 2 things that she acquired on her quest to save her family in Nihil space. First is the severed hand of her cousin, which was turned into an ashy husk in much the same way that the Nameless killed Jedi, But not only was he partially infected before they cut off the infection in the hand, but their entire home world, the entire moon that they grew up on was completely husked in a similar way, which is not anything that Jedi had known the Nameless to be able to do before, so they're hoping that they're able to analyze this when they bring it back to the Jedi Council. And Jordana also gives Vernestra a recording of a witness account of how Jedi Master Elzar Mann murdered Chancey Yara while she was on Starlight Beacon just about to save the entire thing, but Elzar Mann thought that she was a Nihil saboteur and murdered her before investigating any farther. Vernestra and Avon are dropped off on Coruscant by Sylvester and Jordana, where Avon goes to work on cracking the Nihil codes with a team of Republic scientists, and Vernestra returns to the Jedi Council for the first time since the fall of Starlight Beacon. They question why she left, why is she returning, what is this husked hand you've brought us? But after hearing all of her responses, Yoda says that she is wise for taking the time to recenter herself after the fall of Starlight. And the last we see of Vernestra so far is her confronting Elzar Mann, who was childhood best friends with her master Stellan Gios, with the account of his murder of Chancey Yara. She encourages him to admit this to the Council himself, and that's where Vernestra's story ends for right now. Whew. Timeline-wise, we will see her next in The Temptation of the Force, which is coming out soon, where she will be joining with Elzar Mann and Avar Kriss to go across into the Occlusion Zone using some of the cracked codes that Avon is able to provide and fight off the Nihil from inside their own space. But before that, we will see her about 100 years in the future in The Acolyte, where she is now a Jedi Master, and as seen in some of the trailers, still using her lightwhip. I don't know how much of her story up till now will play directly into the events of The Acolyte. Probably not a lot. It's been over 100 years. But I'm excited to see where this character that I've grown attached to over the course of a lot of books is now in live action, and she's much older and wiser than she is as a child here, but I am just very excited to see this character that I've grown to know and love in a later stage in her life. If you watched this whole entire thing, thank you so much. Holy crap, I've never filmed a longer video. Thank you for sticking around. Let me know, did you enjoy such a long video? Should I have maybe done this in parts like a smarter person? Good God, I'm gonna have to edit this thing. Oh, let me know what you think down in the comments below. Let me know, have you read any of these books? What are some of your favorite characters from the High Republic era? And are you excited to see The Acolyte? Let me know in the comments below, unless you have racist or sexist things to say. If you do, I don't care, and your comment will be deleted. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. Have a good week.